And in the midst of this crisis, the International Organization for Migration, the IOM, has played a critical role in humanitarian response. Just months ago, the IOM became the first UN agency to re-enter Khartoum. And since April 2023's evacuation, a major milestone in restoring access to the capital was achieved. Joining us now is Mohamed Refaat, the Chief of Mission for the IOM in Sudan. And to help us understand the scale of the crisis, the challenges on the ground, and what the international community must do next. Thank you so much for joining me, Mohamed. Can you please describe the current situation and the scale of the crisis in your own words?
Assalamu alaikum, Mohamed. Thanks. Pleasure to be with you today and with your respected audience. It's actually, if I can describe it in my own words, for me as a parent, it's a crisis of the choices that you have to make every day, whether which one of your kids you will feed. One out of every two in Sudan cannot have full meal per day, which means for a family of 5, every day, the parents have to make the choices who is going to make his meal today. Mm-hmm. If you have to choose between getting healthcare services, you might compromise on other things that you can provide to your family. Which one of your family will go to the school and which one will stay behind? So it's a crisis where every basic service in this country has been missing or impacted by the conflict that has been going for more than 2 years now.
There doesn't seem to be the media coverage one would expect of this, yet the IOM is the first UN agency to re-enter Khartoum, which is astonishing in itself. Tell us why that is. Why is the media blind to this? And secondly, how were you able to get back into Khartoum?
It's actually on top of those horrific conditions that I have just mentioned. It's also, as you mentioned, it is a forgotten crisis, mainly because many other crises the world have seen and they are taking more attention from the media because maybe of their global impact and political sensitivities. And many of the politicians have thought that Sudan has been an ongoing conflict, maybe not really seeing the figures, the horrific figures that we see every day in Sudan. Just to say that Sudan at one point reached more than 12 million Sudanese have been displaced. Mm-hmm. And this is the highest that maybe we have seen since the World War II. Why we went back to Khartoum, I wouldn't claim the glory for IOM. I think we were just driven by the hope that we saw in the Sudanese themselves, choosing to return back to their cities, choosing when they have access to go back, to go and build. So our data told us that we will see waves and waves of millions who might opt to go back and start building their countries. And we decided to be the first one to go and be next to them, to help them build the resilience and hope.
To have over 9 million people that are internally displaced, I mean, the figures just are astounding, really. Must pose a lot of logistical challenges to your teams. What are the challenges that you face?
You can name it. Sudan, for those who doesn't know, Sudan is almost 8 times the size of the UK. So imagine moving across a country that's underdeveloped, how the roads condition, the climate conditions. As we speak now, we have counted thousands who have been displaced just because of floods, let alone the war. And those who have been displaced because of the lack of health services or because of the droughts in different areas. One of the biggest challenges we have also is access, mainly to cities that are under siege, like Al-Fashir, where we count almost 200,000 that are completely out of humanitarian aid for more than 17 months.
And that seems to be something, again, which people do not understand the scale. In terms of, you mentioned the size of the country being 8 times larger than the United Kingdom, with nothing like the infrastructure that the United Kingdom has. So how do you How are you able to serve 30 million people that are in need? How do you do that?
Every day we have to make that very, very hard choice of who we can access, who we can provide service. And based on the shortage also of resources that we have been facing for the last year, we almost choose those who have absolutely no choices. So those who have zero access to food, zero access to shelter, to clean water, to health services, those are our priorities for now, because we know very well that those, if we don't support them, it's likely that we'll die. And then we have sometimes to leave behind us and even come across them and not being able to help them because they are not among those who basically will die. So it's very hard every day that you have to make this choice between who will get the service and who will not, based on how critical and how short time they have until they die.
One of the main aspects of humanitarian relief is the basic necessities, putting aside the long-term relief you'd be providing. Tell us about that, the basic necessities, the sustenance, the people that need things every single day just to live a life, whether it's clothing, food, shelter. How is that being provided?
We have a network of local actors and local partners. We work hand in hand with them to provide clean water, to provide health services, and to provide also shelter items and roof on top of their heads. So that, you know, Sudan is one of those countries that climate is really impacting them badly. And we work very closely with our local actors to ensure also that we are reaching not only those who are most remote, but also building the country capacity. Whenever you work in any country, you need to make sure that something is being left behind. We don't want to continue being here for years and years and years. We want to build this Sudanese capacity to support themselves as much as we can.
When people think of Sudan, they think of a dry desert region, but it's not entirely correct, because it's the source of the Nile. There is the ability to farm land and to produce itself. Sudan did that for centuries. Is that something that you provide support to get people to return back to agriculture and back to working the land, so that nature itself provides for them?
Absolutely, and this is the absolute most priority. And I think we should stop differentiating between what's development and long term and what's short term, because when I go and I ask any Sudanese woman, what would you like and what do you need, she would tell me, give me a job, give me something that I can maintain or sustain my family. Even those single households women, I meet with them, and I just met with them in Khartoum a couple of days ago. They didn't ask me for a basket of food or a basket or a water tank. They asked me, please provide us with some job that can help us maintain our dignity. And just on this point, Sudan, for those who doesn't know, Sudan is a super rich of resource country. Sudan have access on the beautiful Red Sea, source of tons of minerals, including gold, source of a very fertile land that can feed and help the world food shortages. I can easily say that the land that's being cultivated in Sudan or ready to be cultivated in Sudan exceed what we have in Ukraine. And remember, if with the Ukraine crisis, when everyone was worried about the impact of the Ukraine war on the food supply chain, I can tell you Sudan can easily cover this gap if peace comes to Sudan.
And what about the other basics for young people? Certainly, education. Is that something that's within your remit as well?
So we are having now a new project, our program, trying to focus on vocational training for youth, especially now that many of the universities have been out of functions for 2 years. We are trying to provide those youth with opportunities so they still remain in their country and build it. We have seen, unfortunately, a lot of those desperate Sudanese trying to cross the Mediterranean over the last couple of weeks. Many them unfortunately died. And this is exactly what we have been warning everyone about. Sudan is not a country crisis. Sudan goes beyond the region. And Sudanese, by 2.6 million have returned from their areas of displacement to their original places, knowing that those original places doesn't have even basic services, but they still return. This tells us that Sudanese would like to build their own country and build their own place, and they still have hope in this country. So I would say this is where we need to put our investment: youth, finding them vocational jobs, trainings, help them to be productive, and they will build the country.
You mentioned, local partners who help you deliver aid. Is the system easy to access? Does it involve a lot of checks and balances? Obviously, it would do, but is it more than in other places? Obviously, you're a humanitarian, so you've got experience. How does it compare to, for example, Syria or other countries where you'd be operating?
Unfortunately, saying from someone who has worked in Syria, Yemen, Libya, Central African Republic, Afghanistan, I can tell you that Sudan is way more complicated. Unfortunately, when we hear about Sudan, we think about only two parties for a conflict or war between two sides. But Sudan is way more complicated than this. More frictions are on the ground. As I mentioned, the road condition, as I mentioned, the floods, poverty, risk of crime. And unfortunately, as we see the world is expanding, we see also the expansion of the international crime on ground, including human trafficking and smuggling.
Yeah.
So it's a complex work environment. But we are here and we are taking risk. And by returning to Khartoum, this was one of the calculated risks that we take. Because as humanitarians, we cannot just assume that it will be an easy job. It is not. But we count on peace and every country advocating for peace, because this is exactly what will bring Sudan to be a self-sustained country.
One of the areas that is particularly interesting is the use of data and tracking, such as the DTM. How does that play a role in shaping your response to this particular crisis, for example?
For me, data is the light. So without light, even if you are cooking in your own kitchen that you know by heart, you will still do mistakes. And IOM is the source of most of like 90% of the data that we all hear, especially about displacement, the needs on the ground, who is moving from where to where, their needs, their top priorities. Those are the reports that we provide every week to the humanitarian actors on the ground. And without those information, I would say Sudan response will go blind. So as simple to simplify it, this is how I can describe it, that we invest a lot in getting data, raw data from everywhere in Sudan. And I'm proud to say that we have access to every locality and everywhere in Sudan, because this is what we have been doing for years, even before the war. And I honestly think that this is one of the biggest achievements of IOM Sudan in the country, that we are enabling every humanitarian, even small local actors, to exactly respond in the right place, in the right way, with the data and information that we are providing on a weekly basis.
What about your safety? I mean, the safety of humanitarians working on the ground. Is that precarious at times? Obviously, we've got belligerent forces fighting against each other, trying to get power. You've got other state actors and non-state actors on an international level also involved in the country. So what particular challenges do humanitarians face in terms of their safety?
As you spoke about other crises, let me tell you one unhappy fact, which is that before the Gaza crisis, Sudan used to be named the most deadly crisis for humanitarians on earth. But unfortunately, we saw the Gaza crisis and the number of humanitarian actors who have been killed or died during the war in Gaza. And this also made many of the ministries or governments to forget about Sudan. Sudan is still a very hard work environment, dangerous work environment. Just for our agency alone, I can at least mention four of our staff who have been killed over the last 2 years, and definitely 3 or 4 who have been arrested, including 2 have been arrested like a couple of days ago. So it's not an easy environment to work around at all. It's very hard, tough. Our staff pay the cost of it. And let me also remind you that it's not only about their life safety, but 70% of my colleagues, national colleagues who work in our organization, they are displaced themselves. 70% of the staff who provide aid, they are displaced and they are suffering from the displacement. Many of them have their families has already left the country and living abroad because of the war. So they are actually refugees, their families are refugees. So this is the conditions that aid workers are working across and facing every day in Sudan.
And do you see an immediate end to or a short-term end to the crisis? How long do you think Sudan's going to be facing this over the short and medium term?
I think it should end immediately. I don't see enough actions taken seriously to end the war. And I would say that this is going to impact the country, the region, and goes beyond. And we definitely need all our parliaments, our member states, to advocate for peace for Sudan. Because, as I mentioned, Sudan is rich, it can sustain itself, it can be a very productive and supportive country to its neighbors and beyond globally, as, for example, if we mention minerals, if we mention agriculture, many countries will benefit from peace in Sudan, and many countries will have to survive with a long-term impact if Sudan is not stable.
Thank you so much, Refaat. I really appreciate you coming onto the show. Thanks, because of Gaza and obviously what's gone on there, a lot of spotlight goes onto that conflict, but Sudan has been off our screens, out of our minds, and it's really important that we do concentrate on what's been going on and put our focus there as well. Appreciate everything that you do. Thank you so much for joining me.
I appreciate your time and your focus on Sudan, and keep Sudan in the heart. Thank you.